Carl Jung's unexpected advice for intuitive introverts, INFJs. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. These timeless words from Carl Jung remind us that the journey to personal growth doesn't begin in the world around us. It begins within. If you've ever felt like you see life through a deeper lens, sense emotions others can't explain, or feel called to a quiet purpose no one else seems to understand, this message might have been meant for you. Today, on Spiritual Wisdom, we're unveiling a powerful, hidden message Jung left behind, one that speaks directly to the soul of the INFJ. Are you ready to hear it? Let us know in the comments how this insight resonates with your journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes one message can awaken everything. 1. Embrace your INFJ nature as a gift, not a flaw. Carl Jung believed that introversion, sensitivity, and deep intuition weren't flaws to be fixed, but sacred qualities that few truly understood. To him, the INFJ personality wasn't just another label, it was a soul imprint. These rare individuals possess emotional depth and inner clarity that often separate them from the rest of the world. Not because they are broken, but because they are built differently. In a society that prioritizes speed over silence and noise over nuance, the INFJ's quiet strength can be mistaken for weakness. But Jung saw through that illusion. He knew that true power doesn't always roar sometimes. It whispers from the soul. What sets INFJs apart is not their desire to be seen, but their deep need to see. They move through life with a sense of purpose that doesn't rely on external validation. Their focus isn't on impressing the world, but on understanding it beneath the surface, beyond the masks. INFJs don't crave crowds or popularity. They seek meaning, truth, and connection at the soul level. They're not interested in small talk. They want to know what keeps you up at night, what dreams you've buried, and what pain you've never spoken. While others are swept away by trends and noise, INFJs remain anchored in a world within a world rich with insight, emotion, and intuitive knowing. Carl Jung considered this inward gaze a sign of individuation, the highest form of psychological and spiritual development. To individuate is to become whole, to live not according to the expectations of society, but in alignment with the truth of your own soul. INFJs, with their rare ability to feel deeply and intuit patterns others can't see, are uniquely positioned to walk this path. Their sensitivity, rather than being a burden, becomes a compass guiding them toward integrity, healing, and purpose. They are able to hold space for the complexity of others while honoring their own sacred solitude. In this way, the INFJ doesn't just observe humanity, they carry it, reflect it, and often transform it. Jung's hidden message to the INFJ soul is clear. Your pain, your depth, and your distance from the crowd are not accidents. They are indicators of a higher calling. You were not made to follow the world. You were made to feel what the world has forgotten. While many run from discomfort, INFJs are willing to sit with it, to listen, and to understand. This is a rare spiritual gift in a time when most seek distraction over depth. INFJs don't run from the shadows. They explore them, not just in others, but within themselves. And through that self-awareness, they bring light into places others fear to go. To be an INFJ is to live with an open heart in a guarded world. It is to carry the soul's wisdom in a time of noise, to speak truth through silence, and to lead not with force, but with presence. Carl Jung honored this path. He knew it wasn't easy, but he also knew it was necessary. Because in a world that often forgets what it means to feel, INFJs remind us what it means to be human. Have you ever embraced your INFJ nature as a gift rather than a flaw? If so, share how it's helped you grow in the comments below to inspire others. If not, simply comment, "I will embrace it," so we can walk this empowering journey together. 2. Trust and strengthen your intuition. Carl Jung believed that intuition is not a vague or mystical idea. It's a real, valid, and powerful way of understanding the world, especially for those who walk through life as INFJs. You don't just process facts, you sense truths. You pick up subtle cues others overlook, feel energy shifts in conversations, and recognize patterns in people long before they become obvious. The world might have told you to second-guess yourself, to lean on logic, to prove it, but the truth is, you already know. Your gut feelings, those quiet inner alarms or sudden bursts of clarity, aren't random. They're your soul speaking. Every time you listened and avoided that wrong relationship, every time you knew someone's pain before they said a word, every time you walked away from something that looked good but felt wrong, you were honoring a sacred function of your psyche. Jung taught that this intuitive faculty connects the conscious mind with something much deeper, a kind of personal radar tuned to meaning, symbolism, and soul alignment. But here's the thing. Intuition doesn't yell. It doesn't give you spreadsheets or evidence. It speaks in nudges, symbols, dreams, and an unshakable sense of knowing. And in today's world that prizes speed, data, and proof, learning to trust that inner guidance takes courage. It's like living with a compass no one else sees. Sometimes you know things you can't explain, like sensing someone is lying even when their words sound perfect, or feeling called toward a new direction that makes no logical sense, yet feels deeply right. This isn't guesswork. This is deep inner intelligence. But you must nourish it. Keep track of your intuitive hits. Journal them. Reflect on them. The more you pay attention, the clearer it becomes. You'll start to see that your intuition isn't something fleeting or soft. It's sharp, reliable, and incredibly wise. And when you begin to trust it, your life changes. You stop second-guessing. You stop looking outward for answers you already hold within. You move with confidence, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that feels quiet and immovable. In a noisy, fast-moving world where most people are too distracted to hear themselves think, your ability to sense truth in silence is a rare gift. Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink it to fit in. Jung believed the intuitive soul often walks alone, ahead of their time, misunderstood, but their role is vital. You are not broken for feeling more, knowing deeper, or needing solitude to recharge. You're designed that way for a reason. Trust what pulls at your soul. Trust what feels right before it makes sense. Let your intuition be the compass that guides you not just occasionally, but always. Because the more you follow it, the more your life aligns with who you were truly meant to be. 3. Set boundaries to protect your emotional energy. Your empathy, while deeply spiritual and rare, can quietly drain the very essence of your being if not guarded with intention. INFJs, with their mystical sensitivity and profound emotional depth, often mistake their open hearts as unlimited wells of giving. But Carl Jung, whose work continues to illuminate the inner landscapes of such souls, warned of the quiet erosion that occurs when one constantly serves others at the expense of the self. He believed that individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, is impossible without healthy emotional boundaries. And for you, this is not just a psychological necessity. It's a sacred act of spiritual survival. When you give without limit, without pause, you blur the lines between compassion and self-sacrifice. And what begins as a noble desire to help can slowly become a pattern of energetic self-abandonment. Jung's insight reveals that when we take on more than our emotional structure can hold, we fracture from within. You begin to absorb pain that isn't yours, carry burdens that were never meant to be yours, and feel guilty for simply needing space. Yet setting boundaries isn't rejection. It's spiritual hygiene. It's how you protect the temple of your soul. When someone cries in your presence, you feel it in your bones. When someone's energy is off, your body knows before your mind does. This sensitivity is your gift, but it also requires protection. Otherwise, the world will siphon your light until you forget what it feels like to shine from within. A spiritual boundary is not a wall, it's a filter. It keeps your compassion alive without letting it consume you. And every time you say no from a place of truth, you say yes to your higher self. Imagine the emotional toll of constantly holding space for others, especially those who never hold space for you. It becomes a spiritual imbalance, a silent erosion of your vitality. Jung knew that the soul doesn't thrive in noise and chaos. It needs quiet, solitude, and distance to hear its own voice. Without that space, you risk becoming what the world needs instead of who you truly are. And isn't that the greatest tragedy for a soul like yours? To be everything to everyone and nothing to yourself? You don't have to explain your boundaries. You don't need to justify your silence. Spiritual people often feel the need to be available, open, endlessly understanding. But your light is not infinite if you never return to the source. Every strong soul must retreat to renew its power. There will be moments when you'll feel torn between being kind and being true, between keeping peace and protecting your energy. Choose yourself, not because you're selfish, but because you're sacred. Because the most spiritual thing you can do is honor your own well-being as deeply as you honor others. When Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," he was also offering a hidden permission to be your own sanctuary, even if it means disappointing others. Not everyone deserves access to the most tender parts of your heart. You are not their healer. You are not their emotional sponge. You are a soul on a path of remembrance, and your energy is holy ground. Treat it as such. Comment below, "I protect my energy with love," if you're ready to honor your emotional well-being and set healthy boundaries. 4. Integrate the shadow for true self-awareness. Carl Jung believed that every man carries within him a shadow, those rejected aspects of the self that we push into the unconscious because they don't fit the image we want to present to the world. For INFJs, and especially for introspective men, the shadow often holds traits like anger, selfishness, assertiveness, or even a hunger for dominance. These are not inherently bad qualities, but ones we were taught to repress in order to be accepted, liked, or morally upright. But by doing so, we fracture the soul. The man who hides from his shadow becomes a prisoner of his own unconscious. repeating patterns he doesn't understand, living a life that feels misaligned without knowing why. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The truth is, the shadow holds the very power you've been searching for. It is the gateway to self-respect, clarity, and inner freedom. By facing what you fear in yourself, you stop being controlled by it. Anger becomes boundary setting. Selfishness becomes self-preservation. Assertiveness becomes leadership. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher, your mirror, and your untapped masculine essence. To integrate the shadow is to return to wholeness. And wholeness is what the soul truly craves. Not perfection, not performance, but alignment. Many men walk around with spiritual heaviness, mistaking emotional numbness for peace, when in fact, it is the disconnection from their own soul. They say yes when they want to say no. They silence themselves to avoid conflict. They smile while secretly boiling inside. And yet, there is a fire in them waiting to be acknowledged, not to burn the world down, but to light the path back home. Jung didn't offer a method of escape. He offered a mirror. The path of individuation, the journey of integrating all parts of the self, is not for the faint-hearted. It requires courage to look into the dark and not flinch, to meet your own rage, your lust, your pride, and instead of judging it, ask what wound it's guarding. Every suppressed emotion has a history, and every repressed instinct is a signal. Once you begin this spiritual work, you stop needing to prove your worth to the world because you have already met yourself. Your presence changes. Your voice grounds itself. Your eyes soften but see more. This is what happens when the soul is no longer split. You become magnetic not because you try, but because you finally remember who you are. And in remembering, you no longer betray yourself for love, success, or peace. You embody them instead. Subscribe to our channel and join a community of deep thinkers embracing their full, authentic selves. Here, we explore the hidden aspects of the soul through Jungian wisdom and spiritual insight. Remember, even your shadow holds the key to your light. 5. Cultivate expression and communication of your inner world. INFJs carry within them a world so rich, so intricate, that it often feels too sacred to put into words. You feel deeply, observe keenly, and grasp emotional truths others overlook, yet when the moment comes to speak, to share, to reveal even a glimpse of that inner universe, something holds you back. It's not that the thoughts aren't there, it's that they feel too complex, too raw, too misunderstood. Carl Jung recognized this quiet conflict within sensitive souls like yours and offered a deeper insight. The journey toward wholeness demands expression. Individuation, as Jung taught, is not just about understanding your true self. It's about embodying it, making it visible and real. Your insights, your reflections, your emotional clarity are not meant to live in silence. They are meant to move through you into words, into art, into gestures and conversations that touch the lives around you. The longer you keep them hidden, the more you risk turning your gifts into burdens. Expression is not ego. It is soul alignment. Think of the woman who spends years writing in journals that no one ever reads. In the quiet of her home, she maps the emotions of everyone she encounters, feeling their sadness beneath the surface and their longing behind polite smiles. One day, almost without intention, She posts a few of her thoughts online. They're not polished. They're not perfect, but they are honest. And to her surprise, people start listening. They thank her for saying what they couldn't. Her private clarity becomes a shared light, not because she shouted, but because she dared to be seen. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of awakening through inner truth. The soul doesn't want perfection, it wants expression. And when INFJs begin to express themselves, even in small ways, the impact ripples further than they can imagine. You don't have to be a writer or an artist to honor this message. Maybe your canvas is a journal. Maybe it's a quiet conversation with someone who needs your insight. Maybe it's a moment when you finally say what you've always held back. Whatever the form, what matters is that your inner world no longer stays trapped inside you. So many INFJs are afraid that their depth will be too much, or that their truth will go unheard. But silence is not protection, it's isolation. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And when you not only look inside, but also speak from that place, you awaken others. You become the mirror that helps people see their own truth. There is sacredness in your voice, not because it is loud, but because it is real. The message is not to perform or impress. It's to connect, to bridge the inner and the outer, to turn intuition into language and empathy into action. Your voice was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to heal, to reveal, to guide. This is the invitation Carl Jung left for you. Don't just understand your soul. Honor it by letting it speak. 6. Balance idealism with realism to avoid burnout. While INFJs are born visionaries, deeply attuned to the emotional undercurrents of the world, their spiritual insight often draws them toward idealism that can be both a light and a burden. Carl Jung, who had an intimate understanding of the psyche, offered a timeless message that speaks directly to your soul. If you want your vision to last, you must learn to balance your idealism with realism. You are someone who dreams of a better world, not just for yourself, but for humanity. You see how systems could be more compassionate, how people could connect more truthfully, how pain could be transformed into wisdom. You carry that vision not as an abstract fantasy, but as a sacred responsibility. But the danger lies in expecting the world to rise to your vision too quickly, or in trying to carry everyone's pain on your own fragile shoulders. When you give endlessly without grounding, when you pour your energy into spaces that cannot hold it, you begin to burn out. You feel the heaviness in your chest, the emotional fatigue, the quiet sense of failure that whispers, "Maybe I'm not doing enough." But that's a lie your spiritual self must confront. Jung understood this struggle well. He once said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And that awakening includes recognizing your limits, your need for rest, and your right to protect your peace. To live authentically as an INFJ means embracing the paradox you are both the dreamer and the realist, the healer and the human, the light bearer and the one who must sometimes sit in the dark. Your ability to envision a more loving world is powerful, but that power must be paired with discernment. Not every wound is yours to heal. Not every person is ready to receive the love you offer. And that's okay. You're not failing when you step back. You're honoring your spiritual wisdom. by choosing what sustains you rather than what drains you. The path forward is not to dim your light, but to direct it. It means asking yourself, where is my energy truly needed? What is mine to carry? It means knowing that burnout isn't noble. It's a sign that your energy has been misaligned with your soul's rhythm. You are not meant to sacrifice your well-being to keep others warm. Your dreams matter, but so does your body. Your empathy is sacred, but so are your boundaries. INFJs thrive when they allow their hearts to remain open, but no longer porous. When they learn to say no without guilt. When they let go of the need to fix everyone. When they give without abandoning themselves. That is where the real spiritual transformation begins, not in martyrdom, but in conscious, grounded love. When your idealism is refined through the lens of realism, your purpose becomes more than a dream, it becomes a legacy. You are here to build bridges, not burn out. And when you finally learn to protect your peace while holding space for others, you step fully into the spiritual mastery Jung always knew you were capable of. If this message resonates with your soul, repeat after me. I honor my dreams, but I walk with both feet on the ground. I trust that balance will guide me forward. 7. Trust the journey of individuation. Carl Jung's message to the INFJ man is not some abstract philosophical concept. It is a sacred invitation to awaken the hidden layers of your soul through the path of individuation. This journey is not about improvement, achievement, or success in the eyes of society. It's about stripping away the noise, the masks, the roles you've played for years, and arriving at something raw, real, and spiritually aligned. For INFJs, this journey cuts deeper than most, because your mind sees patterns where others see chaos. Your heart feels the pain others ignore, and your intuition speaks truths that can't be rationalized. Jung didn't tell you to become someone else. He called you to return to who you've always been beneath the conditioning, to let your soul lead, not your ego, and to honor the emotional depth you carry as a divine responsibility, not a flaw. To individuate is to come home to yourself. That means facing the shadows you've buried, embracing the contradictions that make you human, and allowing the tension between light and dark within you to teach you, not torment you. The INFJ man walks the tightrope between logic and feeling, reason and intuition, detachment and empathy, and Jung saw that as the formula for inner alchemy, not a curse. In a culture that still rewards performance over presence and detachment over depth, your ability to feel, intuit, and reflect is spiritual gold. You don't need to harden yourself to be powerful. Your softness, your insight, and your ability to see into people's souls is a strength this world desperately needs. But first, you must learn to see your own. Because until you trust the way your soul speaks through dreams, synchronicities, inner knowing, you will always doubt the very part of you designed to lead. The path of individuation is not linear, it's not glamorous, and it's not for the faint of heart. But it is real, it is sacred, and it is where your peace lives. The INFJ man is here to be a quiet revolutionary, not by shouting louder, but by living deeper. To stop hiding behind logic, and instead integrate it with intuition. To stop performing success, and instead embody truth. And to stop waiting for permission, and instead follow the inner compass your soul gave you long before the world ever taught you to doubt it. When you walk this path, you don't just heal your own wounds, you create a ripple effect that helps others find their way back to themselves too. That's the true spiritual wisdom Jung left behind, not in books or theories, but in the quiet courage it takes to be whole in a world that only values parts. To affirm your dedication to the path of individuation, declare your truth. Comment below, "I trust the journey to honor your authentic self and inspire others to embrace their unique unfolding." And so, as we peel back the layers of Carl Jung's hidden message for INFJs, we're reminded that what makes you feel different might actually be what makes you extraordinary. Your depth, intuition, and quiet strength are not flaws. They're sacred traits meant to guide both yourself and others through this noisy world. If this message resonated with you, or sparked a new insight about yourself or someone you love, don't keep it to yourself, share it. And if you'd like to continue this journey of spiritual growth and self-discovery, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights. Until next time, honor your depth, embrace your uniqueness, and keep walking your sacred path. The hidden curse of being an intuitive introvert. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. On Spiritual Wisdom, we invite you to explore the mysterious world of intuitive introverts, those who sense everything beneath the surface but are often dismissed or misunderstood. Their silence hides a profound inner knowing, and their isolation is often the result of seeing what others cannot. If you've ever felt too deeply, known too much without explanation, or carried the weight of unspoken truths, this video is for you. These insights are not just observations, they are tools for your personal awakening. Apply them to your daily life and watch how clarity, peace, and inner strength begin to grow. Have you ever felt unseen despite your deep awareness? Comment below and share your story. Your voice matters more than you know. Let's awaken together. 1. The curse, 2 realities, and the psychological toll. Most people navigate life relying on what they can see, measure, and explain. But you, as an intuitive introvert, move through the world guided by a deeper frequency, one that senses energy shifts, hidden emotions, symbolic patterns, and unspoken truths. You don't just read words, you feel intention. You don't just observe events, you absorb meaning. In every room, you notice what's off before anyone else does. You pick up on subtle cues, a forced smile, a tone of voice that doesn't match the words, a silence that speaks louder than sound. Carl Jung spoke of this inner world, a realm governed not by logic, but by archetypes, the unconscious, and the soul's quiet language. But the burden of this gift is heavy, because the world doesn't believe what it can't prove. When you speak your truth, people question your sanity. When you try to warn someone, they laugh it off until your prediction comes true. And by then, the emotional damage is already done. This creates a psychological split. 2 realities living within you. One is shared with the masses, practical, observable, rational. The other is your private knowing, where intuition speaks louder than facts. And this dual perception slowly wears you down. You begin to feel like an outsider, too strange to be understood, too deep for surface-level relationships. You crave authenticity, yet the more you reveal, the more misunderstood you become. There's a loneliness in seeing what others can't, in carrying emotional burdens that no one recognizes, in speaking truths that others reject. The more attuned you are to this unseen world, the more alienated you feel in the visible one. Jung warned of this very experience, that those who are gifted with deeper insight often suffer the most because they live at the edge of what society is ready to understand. You might find yourself retreating from people, not because you dislike them, but because you can feel their chaos before they even open their mouth. Crowded rooms make your nervous system ache. Small talk becomes unbearable. You're not rude, you're overwhelmed. Your mind is always processing. Your heart is always absorbing. You may try to numb your gift, to pretend not to notice, to play along. But repression only leads to fragmentation. The more you deny what you sense, the more disconnected you become from yourself. Jung taught that individuation, the journey toward wholeness, requires us to embrace, not exile, the parts of us that don't fit the mold. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's the language of your soul. Your knowledge is not delusion. It's data that others have forgotten how to read. This spiritual responsibility asks you not to harden, but to protect. Not to silence yourself, but to speak more clearly. Not to shrink, but to honor your perception with boundaries and discernment. The path of the intuitive introvert is not easy. It is sacred. You are here to see what others ignore and to remind them, when the time is right, of what they have forgotten. This isn't about proving anything. It's about living in alignment with your own inner compass. Trust what you feel, even when no one else does. And when in doubt, return to Jung's wisdom. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. That awakening is your curse, but it is also your gift. Let it guide you. 2. The gift. Intuitive perception beyond the norm. They move through the world as if they were born with an extra sense that doesn't rely on eyes or ears, but on the silent whispers of the soul. They feel when something is off long before it shows. They wake from dreams, carrying the emotional weight of events that haven't happened yet, only to see them unfold days or weeks later. They sit in rooms and immediately know who's pretending, who's hurting, who's hiding something behind a smile. And yet, when they try to speak it, they are met with disbelief, discomfort, or silence. Carl Jung called this introverted intuition a function not of logic, but of the unconscious. It's not a guess. It's a deep, soul-based perception that reaches beyond facts and into patterns, energies, and truths not yet spoken. These men are not imagining things. Their inner world is simply more developed, more attuned. They live not only in the physical world, but in the symbolic one, a place filled with archetypes, emotions, and meaning that others don't even notice. This dual existence becomes both a gift and a torment. On one hand, they can sense when something's wrong in a relationship before the first fight. They can feel the future shifting before a decision is made. They know when someone's lying, even when the words are perfect. But on the other hand, they are often forced to keep it to themselves. Because when a man says, "I just know," and there's no evidence, people pull away. They question him. They mock him. And slowly, he starts to question himself. But the truth is that knowing comes from a deeper place, from the unconscious, from the soul's connection to something larger. He isn't guessing. He's receiving. And in a world that worships certainty and proof, that kind of soul wisdom becomes lonely. Still, it doesn't go away. It keeps showing up, quietly, persistently, asking to be trusted. These men often suffer in silence. They sense betrayal before it comes, danger before it arrives, endings before they're acknowledged. They see the truth behind the mask, and they carry the burden of awareness that others ignore. It's not easy to live with a soul that's always listening, always translating what others cannot see. But it's not madness. It's not overthinking. It's not a weakness. It's a spiritual intelligence, a silent genius rooted in the unconscious, shaped by energy, and driven by meaning rather than noise. Carl Jung understood this. He knew the intuitive man would be misunderstood, even feared not because he was dangerous to others, but because he threatened the illusion of control. Because while others rely on what they can prove, the intuitive man relies on what he knows deep down, even when there are no words. And this knowledge isn't just about reading people, it's about alignment. His soul doesn't tolerate fake friendships, hollow goals, or toxic environments. He walks away from what drains him, not because he's weak, but because he can feel the cost of staying. His life becomes a spiritual path, guided not by rules, but by resonance. And that's where his power lies. Not in convincing others, but in honoring his own inner compass. Because when he trusts that silent voice within, he no longer needs approval. He no longer chases validation. He simply moves, quietly, soulfully, in harmony with what only he can feel. And that is his greatest strength. Have you ever just known something without being able to explain why? If you've experienced those intuitive flashes through dreams, gut feelings, or subtle energy shifts, share your story in the comments so others can connect. And if you're just beginning to explore this gift, comment, "I will trust my intuition," to commit to your inner journey. 3. Jung's psychological framework. Carl Jung identified 4 core functions of the psyche: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And for intuitive introverts, it's intuition that governs their inner compass. But because sensation is their weakest function, they often feel ungrounded, detached from the physical world, as if they're drifting between dimensions that others can't see. They're not just imagining things, they're decoding the invisible. They enter a room and instantly know who's lying, not by words or gestures, but because their inner world lights up with truth. They dream of heartbreaks before they happen, feel a shift in someone's energy before betrayal is revealed, and sense when something is off, even when everyone else sees calm. But when they try to express these truths, they're met with suspicion, pity, or laughter. The very thing that gives them spiritual sight isolates them. It's not that they're wrong, it's that the world is blind to what they see. Their perception isn't linear, it's symbolic, emotional, energetic. They live through metaphor and synchronicity, receiving information from dreams, gut feelings, and passing thoughts that carry weight others can't feel. The curse isn't their insight, it's the burden of not being believed. They're labeled overly sensitive, dramatic, or weird, not because their intuition fails, but because it surpasses normal comprehension. They sense the storm while the sky is still blue. They pull away from people everyone else adores because something deep inside them says, "Be careful." And months later, the truth comes out, but by then, the intuitive has already carried the weight in silence. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And for intuitive introverts, that awakening can feel more like exile. Their inner clarity is sharp, but the outer world demands evidence. It demands logic where only energy speaks. And so they shrink. They second guess. They doubt what they feel just to be accepted by those who can't even feel themselves. But the truth remains. Their intuition is not a glitch. It is a spiritual design. It's a sacred system tuned to frequencies most people have long forgotten. And yet, because they can't show it, can't prove it, they often try to suppress it. They try to be normal, to dismiss the knowing, to stay silent in meetings, in friendships, in love. But the cost of that suppression is spiritual exhaustion. They weren't built for small talk and surface truths. They were built to see through, to feel into, to awaken others by simply existing as they are. Their presence is prophetic, even if no one around them understands why. This is why the intuitive introvert feels both gifted and burdened, both wise and invisible. They see the soul behind the smile, the fear behind the brag, the future in the fragments. But in a world addicted to certainty, their mystery feels like madness. And still, they return to themselves. Because deep down, they know the soul doesn't need permission to speak. It only needs to be trusted. If this insight into Jung's framework helped you better understand your intuitive strengths and your struggles with staying grounded, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your reflections in the comments below. Let's continue uncovering the deeper layers of the mind together. 4. The 3 psychological traps. Most people don't understand that for intuitive introverts, the gift of deep perception often feels more like a heavy cross than a superpower. It's not just about reading between the lines. It's about being unable to turn off your inner radar. You don't just see things, you sense them in your soul. You feel the lies no one admits. You absorb the moods no one speaks. And you carry the tension others refuse to name. You're not guessing you know, but that knowledge isolates you. Carl Jung warned, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Yet even awakening has its shadows. And for intuitive souls, those shadows can become traps if they're not consciously recognized and mastered. The first trap is archetypal inflation. When you begin to identify too strongly with spiritual roles like the prophet, the healer, or the visionary. It starts subtly. You offer guidance. People listen. You feel validated. But over time, the ego confuses itself with the archetype. You stop being a man with a soul and start believing you are the archetype itself. You become the message rather than its vessel. And though it feels powerful, it quietly separates you from reality, from humility, from growth. You stop relating to others as equals and begin operating from a pedestal no one asked you to stand on. The soul becomes consumed by its own reflection and forgets its purpose. Then comes psychic contamination, the most exhausting part of being deeply intuitive. You can't help but absorb other people's energy, their grief, fear, insecurity, until you can't tell what's yours and what's theirs. You might wake up sad and not realize it's your partner's unspoken anxiety. You might feel suffocated after a meeting and not realize your nervous system has absorbed everyone's stress. You walk around like an emotional sponge, heavy and saturated. And unless you know how to spiritually cleanse, protect, and separate your energy, your soul slowly gets buried under burdens it was never meant to carry. You become tired, irritable, lost in emotions that were never born inside you. But perhaps the most deceptive trap is possession by the unconscious. This is when your inner world becomes so loud, so symbolically charged, that you start living more in dream logic than grounded reality. You see signs in everything. A crow becomes a prophecy. A coincidence becomes a command. You start waiting for the universe to speak instead of making decisions. You stop acting and start watching, interpreting every single thing as if it's part of some divine chessboard. It feels spiritual, but it's actually disorienting. Without balance, even the deepest soul can drown in its own mysticism. These three traps, archetypal inflation, psychic contamination, and unconscious possession, don't mean there's something wrong with you. They mean your soul is deeply tuned, and like any finely tuned instrument, it needs care, precision, and awareness. To walk this path is to learn how to feel deeply without losing yourself, how to sense truth without abandoning logic, and how to carry light without burning out. The intuitive soul is not here to escape reality. It's here to illuminate it. And that requires not just sensitivity, but strength, discernment, and above all, grounded spiritual maturity. Do any of these psychological traps feel familiar to you? Comment, "I've been there," if you've experienced them, or "Still exploring," if you're just starting to recognize them. And if this gave you clarity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. 5. Stage 1. The gift feels magical. You discover your gift when you're still young, long before you have the words to explain it. You feel what others are hiding. You know when someone's lying, even if their face shows nothing, and you can sense what's coming before it arrives. You see connections others miss between people, events, energy, and outcomes. At first, it feels magical, like you're chosen, touched by something divine. There's a thrill in knowing what others don't, in watching situations unfold exactly as you foresaw. But soon, that thrill turns to confusion. When you try to share what you feel, people dismiss it. They say you're too sensitive, too dramatic, or just imagining things. You begin to question yourself, not because you're wrong, but because you're alone in what you see. This is what Carl Jung spoke of when he explored the intuitive type, those whose perceptions stem not from logic, but from the soul's deeper sensing. You walk into a meeting and instantly know who's manipulating the conversation, who's afraid, who's about to quit. You sense relationships unraveling before a word is said. You dream of disasters before the headlines break. But when you speak up, they laugh, brush it off, or worse, look at you like you've lost your mind. So you stop sharing, not because the visions stop, but because the disbelief cuts deeper than silence. You withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. The more awake your soul becomes, the more blind the world around you feels. In a society obsessed with logic, your spiritual radar becomes a burden. Your gift isolates you. You walk through life knowing too much, feeling too much, and carrying the weight of truths no one else will claim. A friend once said his marriage was fine, but I saw it unraveling in his nervous laughter, the way he avoided eye contact when she was mentioned. I knew he was pretending, and months later, when it all fell apart, he asked how I knew. I didn't know how, I just felt it. That's the reality of the intuitive introvert. You're not guessing. You're tuned into something ancient and unspoken. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart." But clarity can be isolating. You're the one who notices the shift in someone's tone before they realize they're upset. You sense when something is spiritually off, even if all the facts seem fine. This sensitivity isn't a weakness, it's depth. It's a form of spiritual perception that reads the emotional and energetic fields most people ignore. Over time, this gift forces you to create distance, not because you don't care, but because you feel everything. The problem isn't your intuition, it's that the world forgot how to listen to the language of the soul. You're not broken. You're just ahead of your time. You were born seeing what others spend decades trying to find, and your journey now is not to prove yourself to them, but to trust yourself, ground your gift, and protect your energy. Because this curse only feels like one when you seek validation from those who cannot see. The real task is to turn inward, honor what you feel, and remember that your sensitivity is not your flaw, it's your superpower. If you're still here, comment, "I'm awakening" below. Your voice helps us shape this journey, and your presence truly matters. 6. Stage 2. The curse emerges. You sense things before they're said. You feel the tension no one talks about, the sadness behind someone's smile, the betrayal that hasn't yet unfolded. It's not guesswork, it's a knowing that lives in your bones. You try to explain what you feel, but people dismiss you, misunderstand you, or accuse you of overthinking. So you begin to hide it. You start living a double life. On the surface, you laugh at the right times, say what's expected, and appear calm. But inside, you are flooded with spiritual impressions, subtle shifts in energy, invisible patterns playing out in every conversation. You're not just picking up emotions, you're absorbing them, and it's exhausting. The more you sense, the more others seem to resist your truth. You don't even have to speak it. Your presence alone feels like a mirror they didn't ask for. They feel exposed, not because you judge them, but because you see through them. Carl Jung said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. But when your presence reflects their hidden wounds, many would rather reject you than face themselves." Over time, your insight becomes a curse. You second-guess your inner voice. You start wondering if something's wrong with you. You become isolated not because you want to be alone, but because the surface world feels hollow. Shallow conversations drain you. Loud rooms overwhelm you. You crave depth, silence, and connection that doesn't require you to shrink your soul. This silence breeds pressure. The pressure becomes pain. And that pain splits into 3 traps: self-doubt, isolation, and burnout. First, you doubt your gift. You ask, "Why can I feel what others deny?" Second, you retreat into solitude, not for peace, but because it's the only place you can breathe. And third, you grow tired of pretending, of filtering, of holding back what your spirit knows to be true. You're not weak. You're not too sensitive. You're spiritually awake in a world that often prefers sleep. And this burden is heavy, but it's also sacred. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to transform. You were never meant to be believed by everyone. You were meant to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. Being an intuitive introvert isn't just a personality trait, it's a soul contract. It means carrying light through dark spaces, speaking truth that no one else dares to name, and feeling everything because your presence was designed to heal. It's why you feel more. It's why you know more. But with that gift comes the responsibility to protect your energy, to stop apologizing for your depth, and to recognize that your spiritual sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a form of intelligence the world doesn't yet fully understand. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to remind those who forgot how to feel, how to listen, how to see. And though that path may feel lonely, it is also divine. If this stage resonates with your experience, living between what you see and what you can't say, don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. We explore the hidden layers of perception and how to carry this gift without letting it crush your soul. 7. Stage 3. Integration, the way out. The third stage, integration, is not just the rarest, but the most spiritually transformative part of the journey for intuitive introverts who have long carried the burden of sensing too much. It demands a level of inner mastery that few reach because it asks you to not only survive your sensitivity, but to turn it into structured power. The first essential skill in this stage is to strengthen sensation, a spiritual regrounding into the physical world. For decades, you may have lived in your mind, in your visions, your predictions, your feelings, floating above the noise of reality while being overwhelmed by it. But now, you must return to your body like a warrior returning to his armor. Walk with presence, not just to move, but to feel the ground. Cook not just to eat, but to engage with heat, texture, and nourishment. Tend to plants, clean your space, move with deliberate intention. Every physical act becomes a ritual that anchors you back into your soul's home, the body. This is how the unconscious flood begins to subside, not by resisting it, but by balancing it through embodiment. Carl Jung once said, "The body is your mind's best friend." And when you honor it, you regain control over your spiritual channel. Once grounded, the next sacred task is to translate the invisible. You can no longer afford to keep what you see and feel locked within. Your intuitive gifts, those flashes of knowing, those psychic impressions, those energetic truths, are only isolating when they are not given form. Expression is your redemption. Write the dreams that haunt you. Paint the energies you sense. Speak the patterns others don't notice. Build frameworks, draw maps, invent language to help people understand what lives beneath the surface of their own awareness. You do not need to explain everything, but you must give people something they can hold. It's how your soul stops whispering only to you and begins teaching others. And in doing so, your isolation turns into leadership. Jung believed the soul was both the source of deep feeling and deep creativity, and when those two meet, transformation is inevitable. Translation turns you from misunderstood into messenger. But none of this can unfold without the third mastery, setting boundaries. As you open to deeper truths, you must also learn when to close. Your intuitive channel cannot be left exposed to every energy that walks by. You must choose when to listen, when to block, and when to disengage. This is not avoidance. It is spiritual hygiene. Say no when your nervous system says, stop. Walk away when your energy begins to drain. Pause and ask, is this mine to carry? Because not every feeling belongs to you. And without boundaries, even a gift becomes poison. You need space between your soul and the noise of the world. Just like the lungs need to exhale, your energy needs release and renewal. Discernment becomes your sword and shield. Integration is not becoming numb, it's becoming sovereign. And only when you combine these three skills, grounding in sensation, translating the invisible, and protecting your soul's doorway, can you truly begin to live as the powerful, intuitive man you were always meant to be? Have you ever tried grounding your intuition through something physical like writing, painting, or tending to a garden? If yes, share your experience in the comments so others can learn from you. If not, comment, "I will begin the integration to step into this rare and transformational path with us." 8. The path forward. Most people will never truly grasp what it means to live with a radar that detects emotions, energy shifts, and unspoken truths the moment you step into a room. You feel tension behind polite smiles, sadness hidden beneath laughter, and dishonesty masked by charm. You sense everything, yet when you speak on it, you're met with disbelief, indifference, or ridicule. This is the silent burden of intuitive, introverted spiritual receptors in a world that glorifies noise and dismisses depth. Carl Jung, the pioneering voice of analytical psychology, once warned that those with heightened intuition often suffer not because of what they know, but because of how profoundly they know it. It's not just knowledge, it's soul-deep awareness. And while others casually drift through the surface of life, you are submerged in the undercurrents, absorbing the unseen stories that shape every room, every conversation, every interaction. You watch people move through life, oblivious to their contradictions. Yet you pick up on every inconsistency, the way someone's words betray their energy, the moment someone's smile fades ever so slightly when another person enters the room. You may not always have evidence, but you carry truth in your body. And when you speak from that inner knowing, they think you're imagining things, exaggerating, or being too emotional. But 3 months later, your instincts prove right. This is the paradox. Your gift is powerful, yet it isolates you. You see patterns before they unfold, sense danger before it arrives, and feel betrayal before it's admitted. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. Yet the weight of knowing without validation can wear down even the strongest soul. Carl Jung emphasized that becoming your true self is the greatest privilege of a lifetime. But for intuitive introverts, that path often begins in exile. Because before your gift is recognized, it is rejected even by you. A man once shared how, for decades, he numbed his intuition to be accepted. Called too sensitive since childhood, he learned to mask his insights, silence his instincts, and conform to emotional shallowness. But after a personal crisis shattered his mask, he sought help from a Jungian therapist who taught him to reconnect with his inner voice. That voice, once silenced, became his guide. He began journaling, meditating, writing poetry, and simple acts that helped him remember who he was before the world told him to forget. Today, he mentors others who feel lost, guiding them not through logic, but through presence. His story is not rare. It is the quiet legacy of many intuitive souls who transmute rejection into wisdom and pain into purpose. When integrated, intuitive introverts become more than feelers. They become healers, pattern breakers, emotional architects. They see chaos and turn it into clarity. They don't just reflect the world, they reinterpret it through the lens of the soul. Though less than 2% of the population may understand your depth, history has always been shaped by the few who dared to see beyond what was visible. Your sensitivity is not weakness. Your intuition is not imagination. Your soul is not confused. It's just been waiting for you to stop explaining yourself and start embodying your truth. Carl Jung believed that true healing begins in the individual soul, not in society. So don't wait for the world to believe you. Believe in your own knowledge, because what others call too much is actually a mirror they're not ready to look into. And what feels like a curse is often the very thing the world is quietly starving for. If this message resonates with your soul, leave a comment of strength. My gift is sacred. I will carry it with clarity and courage. And if you've walked this path of integration, share your wisdom below your story, maybe the light someone else is searching for. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next step on this journey. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unseen world of intuitive introverts who sense everything, yet are so often misunderstood. If this message resonated with you or made you feel a little more seen, you're not alone. Your sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a sacred gift. As Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. If you found value in today's video, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming insights into the soul, consciousness, and personal transformation. Until next time, stay true to your inner wisdom